Hello and welcome to Wendell's Guide to Talents in patch 5.4. Um, so basically how the talent system works is you have six different tiers for talents, and in each tier you have three options you can pick from. So you can pick like one option in one tier and then go to like the second option in another tier, third option in another tier, and you're no longer limited like you were before in talents where you actually had to go down one entire tree before you could go down to the other tree. Now you're able to just pick whatever, pretty much any combination you want, just one from each tier though. Another thing that's very useful is basically you're now able to do almost everything is not really a DPS increase per se. It's more utility based. Some of them are DPS increases, depending on the situation and everything. But it's pretty much like you're like in, for example, in this tier, you're picking between one heal, like different types of heal, whether you heal over time, heal instantly, or just reduce the damage you take, which would, I guess, equate to a different form of healing, I guess. Um, and all the different trees, for the most part, try to kind of stay along that line, which is pretty nice. So, another thing is, in order to actually like change your talent, if you pick a talent, there's something called Tome of Clear Mind. If you're lower level, you can use the Dust or Vanishing Powder, but you basically have like Tome of Clear Mind, and as long as you have those in your pack, you're actually able to erase a particular tier talent that you have and pick a different one in between combat pools. So that is pretty helpful. Alright, so this first talent we have is called Post Haste, and basically what that one does is it allows you to disengage from an enemy and also removes you from all speed or all movement impairing effects, along with increasing your speed by 60% for 8 seconds afterwards. It's similar to the post haste you had in the marksman tree back in the last expansion. I've personally only used this on Thorum when I'm soloing Thorum in Old War 25 and 10 man, but pretty much this can be useful in PvP situations. It's just kind of more of your playstyle. So in this case, like I get entangling roots, so I go so I post haste, and look, I can run around for like 8 seconds or 6 seconds or whatever, which actually is 8 seconds, which actually lasts kind of a long time. It allows me to do that, so it's a very good talent choice to have, and I personally like it a lot. So you can get removed from movement impairing effects, so it'll be like, hey, look, I'm no longer slowed or stunned or whatever. Well, actually, I don't think it removes stun, but it just slows and stuff, and then you move faster as well, so that's really good. The second one is basically what this one does is when you disengage away from a target that's within 8 yards of you, you will pretty much put them in a stun, a little web, so that they can't move. So in this case, I would go, oh look, I shoot you, disengage, and now he's in a web and can't move, even though he's trying. He's like, help, I can't move. So that's another useful ability. More useful against melee, honestly. So it's more of, because of that, it's more, you're not going to have a lot of use for it in PvE probably, and it's situational in PvP, because in PvP you'll probably only use it against melee. So against melee it's very strong, but if you're not going against melee, then the other two options are probably better. The third talent option you have is Crouching Tiger, Hidden Chimera, and You can actually use this one in combination with other glyphs as well, such as Glyph of Liberation, which heals you and stuff. And basically, what it does is it reduces your disengage from 25 seconds to 15 seconds, and it reduces your deterrence from 2 minutes to 1 minute. So that's actually extremely powerful, and because of that, that's pretty much my personal favorite. I'll almost say mandatory for PvE. For PvP, I actually like to have that as well for PvP because it means I can disengage almost twice as often in PvP, and I also have my deterrence twice as often in PvP as well, which can be very useful. So I personally like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, but you might find Post Haste also to your liking. So, yeah. For the next one, we've got Silencing Shot. I'd say that's pretty much mandatory in PvE. Yeah, it'll basically interrupt spell casting and silence them for 3 seconds. 24-second cooldown. Pretty much mandatory in PvE. PvP, kind of situational, but for me personally, I like Silencing Shot in PvP as well. So, basically, cast it, Silencing Shot. Oh, look, he's silenced, so you interrupt the spell casting or whatever, and yeah. So, that's my personal favorite. The next one you have is Wyvern Sting, and basically what that does is it'll put the target to sleep for 30 seconds in PvE situations. It's around 6 seconds in PvP situations. It's probably actually pretty useful. I'd say probably more useful than Silencing Shot in PvP, just because Silencing Shot only affects casters, whereas Wyvern Sting will affect all targets. That being said, you can't do any damage to them or it'll interrupt the thing. On the plus side for hunters is it'll replace your Serpent Sting. So if you have a Serpent Sting on them, you don't have to worry about the Serpent Sting going off and waking the guy up prematurely. So pretty much you just shoot them and they'll be put to sleep, for 6 seconds. And then that 6 seconds that they're unable to move, cast any spells, do anything. So that could be pretty useful, like almost a second trap almost. 6 seconds. How long does trap last? 4 seconds. Wow. So yeah, that could be pretty useful for additional CC on both melee and casters. So yeah. So this next one is useful in PvP. I don't think it's very useful in PvE, just because most stuff will actually be immune to this effect anyway. But basically what it does is Intimidation makes a target get stunned for 3 seconds. And the cool thing is, while they're stunned, you can keep damaging them, and they won't come out of the stun. So that's pretty much our only ability that we have where we can stun someone and they won't come out of the effect. So that is pretty cool. The downside is it's a minute cooldown and it only lasts 3 seconds, so it's not going to last very long. But pretty much you just have your pet attack, and then your pet does have to be in melee range for it to use it, and then you just go stun, and then they're unable to do anything. They're like, I can't do anything, blah. So pretty cool. Intimidation is no longer Beast Mastery only, and it was replaced. Basically it replaced the Binding Shot talent from last patch. So Binding Shot is now a marksman only thing for the time being anyways. Alright, so for the next set of The next tier, you've got Exhilaration, Aspect of the Iron Hawk, and Spirit Bond. Exhilaration, I actually do not like. Basically, because how Spirit Bond works is Spirit Bond will regen 2% of your health every 2 seconds. That's basically you're getting healed 1% of your health every second. So after 30 seconds, you're healed for 30%. Exhilaration will heal you for 30% instantly, but it's on a 2-minute cooldown, which means it takes, in the course of 2 minutes, to heal another 30%. You'll have healed for 120% of your health. Whereas Exhilaration, you can only heal 30% of your health every 2 minutes. So, to me, that doesn't seem very equal, which is why I don't like Exhilaration. And I never used it. So, yeah, that's just me though. But basically, how it works is 2 minutes cooldown. You can instantly heal yourself for 30%, and you can heal your pet back to full as well. So you just go, oh look, I just got 150k heal, blah blah. Hunters do like to use it. Basically, what they do is they'll use it in conjunction with other stuff. Like they'll use Exhilaration, plus they'll use it in conjunction with like a Spirit Beast, Spirit Man. Maybe they'll have like Animal Bond up, stuff like that, so that they'll get like a lot of heals all at once, and it'll basically like heal them all the way up to full. In addition to that, you can cast Readiness, and it'll come off cooldown, and you can heal yourself again. Do that again. So you can do that, but it's just like having to use Readiness just to heal yourself is kind of like, you're gonna want to use. He's gonna actually flare. But you're gonna want to use it Readiness in order to get like the full effect of Exhilaration a lot of times. So it can be good, but I personally have never used it, and I don't think I ever will use it. So Spirit Bond to me is just a lot better. Alright, so the next talent option you have is Aspect of the Iron Hawk. This pretty much what this one does is it reduces the damage you take by 15%. So it acts kind of like the Priest Bubble, where it's preventing damage or absorbing damage. 15% damage absorbed or reduced is a lot of damage, which means if you're taking damage, like you pretty much want to have that in any sort of PvE situation. Any situation where you have a healer, in fact, because it'll make it a lot easier on your healer's life to have you taking less damage. Don't get me wrong, like 15% reduced damage, you're still going to be taking a lot of damage, so you're probably not going to notice too much, but your healers probably will. So pretty much PvE mandatory. PvP, if you have like some sort of heal bot or something with you, definitely do that, so that'll make your healer's life a lot easier, keeping you up. Alright, so the final talent in this tier is Spirit Bond, and that basically, once again, it regenerates 2% health every 2 seconds, or basically an easier way to think of it is 1% every second. That means in the course of 30 seconds, you'll have healed for 30% of your health, which is the same amount as Exhilaration. In the course of 2 minutes, the cooldown of Exhilaration, you'll have healed for 120%, or 4 times the amount of Exhilaration. So, as long as you can stay alive, that's the main one, is as long as you're able to stay alive and avoid as much damage as possible, Spirit Bond will heal you for a lot more than Exhilaration ever will, which is why I like Spirit Bond so much. In addition, it's a passive heal, so you don't actually have to, the only thing you have to do is make sure your pet's alive in order to actually get healed. If you don't have your pet out or your pet's dead or something, you're not going to be getting that healing buff, so just be aware of that. But pretty much I use this for both PvP situations where I don't have a heal bot, which is a lot, and I'll also use it in extreme soloing. So very, very useful to have. For this next tier, basically what they are is they're ways of actually gaining back focus or reducing the amount of focus that things cost. Um, there's no real clear winner as far as I know with these. A lot of them are they're very, very close in what you want to do. So it's kind of situational, playstyle, that kind of thing. So pretty much, the first one is called Fervor, and what Fervor does is, let's see if I can find it. Doo-doo-doo. Fervor. There we go. So basically, what Fervor does is instantly restores 50 focus along with an additional 50 focus over 10 seconds. So I go blah blah blah. Instantly got 50 focus back, and now it's restoring another 50 focus over 10 seconds. So it's a very useful for just mass getting focus back. If you know that you're going to be doing like a burst, which actually really helps out in like beast mastery. If you're doing a burst, you can do a whole bunch of bursts, cast Fervor. That'll instantly give you a whole bunch of focus back, so you can keep doing your bursts rather than wasting it on a Cobra Shot. And you'll get another 50 focus back over time as well. In addition to Beastal Wrath making it all your shots cost less, so that could be useful. The other situation, you could be like doing a lot of AoE, you could be wanting to do a lot more AoE. That'll instantly give you back a whole lot of AoE, or a whole lot of focus, so you can do more AoE instead of spending that time casting Cobra Shot, so you can get more multi-shots off and everything. So Fervor can be very good for getting focus back quickly. Dire Beast is generally considered the best one usually, especially for single target. And basically the reason for that is you'll end up actually summoning a pet. It's literally a random beast. Might be in your stables, might not be, but it's a random beast you summon, which will attack the mob, and every time it attacks the mob, you'll get back a little bit of focus for every attack. It does get affected by hero, so if you have it pop it out when there's hero active, that means you'll get one or two more additional attacks, which will be one or two more attacks worth of focus that you'll be getting back. It's more of a passive, well, not really passive because you actually have to activate it, but it's a very constant form of focus generation. So, and in addition to that, it also does a little bit of damage, which is not much, but I mean, it's a tiny bit of damage. So, in most cases, it's considered the DPS, the best DPS one to go for, because it'll give you that little bit of extra damage and focus and everything. Now what Thrill of the Hunt does is Thrill of the Hunt is very it's based very much on being passive and proccing. So you don't have to click anything, but you can see here Thrill of the Hunt. Basically what happens is you have a 30% chance whenever you fire a ranged attack that costs focus or kill command in case of beast mastery to Thrill of the Hunt, which basically the next 3 arcane shots or multi shots you cast will reduce their cost by 20. That is very good for basically just having lots and lots of being able to cast lots and lots of multi shots off or arcane shots. Usually it's more useful for the multi shots, but because of that, it's very proc oriented, which means you may get it when you don't need it, and you may not get it when you do need it. So it can be very good, but at the same time, it's very RNG based. So it does proc a lot, which is nice, but it's still going to be very RNG based, so you can't really time your cooldowns with it. That being said, it is passive, so you never have to worry about it actually clicking on it or anything. So, again, it's pretty much situational. All three is very situational, which one you want to pick. Generally, Dire Beast is the main one, but I mean, it honestly depends on the fight, what you're doing, stuff like that. So, for the next set of tier, it's kind of situationally based, but basically, you got Murder Crows, Blink Strike, Lynx Rush, and basically, Murder Crows is generally considered the top DPS talent to choose from this tier over the other two, but it's kind of situational and based on your spec as well. If you're Beast Mastery, you'll actually probably want to go into Blink Strikes over Murder Crows. But basically, what Murder Crows does is 2-minute cooldown, costs 60 focus, unfortunately, so you have to make sure you have the focus to cast it. And basically, what it does is for 30 seconds, a flock of crows just goes and attacks the target. If the target's below 20% health, their cooldown's reduced to 1 minute instead of 2 minutes. Generally, if the target's below 20% health, depending on everyone's DPS, you probably won't be able to get off more than one extra cast because the target's going to go down really fast at that point anyway. So, but for single target fights, this is definitely the go-to talent of this tier. The next one is Blink Strike, which really is more of a Beast Mastery talent than the other two specs. But if your pet is Beast Mastery, it's a very good. It's probably the best one actually to pick. And basically, what it does is it's now a passive ability rather than one you have to click on. So that's good. And it basically just instantly teleports your pet to the target up to 30 yards away and will cause your pet's basic attacks to deal 50% increased damage. So very good to have. You can see my pet pretty much just, well, okay, here we go. You can see my pet just pretty much teleported right there rather than running, so pretty good talent. But again, probably more useful in Beast Mastery than the other specs. The teleport's especially useful, especially if you have to do like target swapping and you need your pet to also target swap. So that can definitely be useful rather than having your pet manually run around, which will be a DPS loss if it runs around. This final talent is Lynx Rush, and from what I understand, this is more of an AoE type thing, but generally it's not even that big of an AoE thing. But if you really want to, you can use Lynx Rush, and basically what it does is it'll cause your pet to kind of like run around either to a single target or to multiple targets and put a bleed on them for 15 seconds, which stacks up to 9 times. So that can be a fairly devastating AoE type thing. So you can see my pet just goes blah, starts running all over the place, putting bleeds on all these targets and stuff. So it does that over 4 seconds, and you can see I put bleeds on a bunch of targets, so can be useful in PvP. Can be useful in PvE, but probably more useful in PvP, honestly, just because the bleed helps do extra damage and stuff like that. So, but yeah, as far as the Murder of Crows and Blink Strike is probably going to be your main two talents for this, depending on whether you're Beast Mastery or the other two specs. So, yeah, it's kind of a cool pet. So pretty much this last one is kind of like an AoE. This last tier is pretty much like an AoE type of tier where you cast various types of AoE abilities. Some are better than others. Essentially, each one is actually very situational. So there is no best one. It depends on the situation. Glaive Toss is the one I personally prefer, partly because I'm a Night Elf and I'm a Hunter. So that goes with a whole Hunter theme and Night Elf theme back from like Warcraft 3 and everything, where they have glaives and stuff. That's the one I personally prefer. For single target, Glaive Toss is also the highest DPS one as well. Basically, all Glaive Toss does is you hurl two glaives at the target, and it deals damage to the target along with any enemies in its path. And it also slows them for 30% for 3 seconds. Your primary target obviously takes more damage than your the other targets, but it works kind of like this. So you can go, so you can see I hit all the targets along the path, and then it hits them all again on the way back to me. So if you can position yourself properly, it can be very devastating. And even if it's only a single target, it's definitely good to put that into your rotation, even for single target. So yeah, it's personally my favorite, and it'll also slow targets in PvP as well. So that is a plus. Alright, so the second talent for this final tier is Power Shot. Costs 15 focus, about a 2-second cast time, 45-second cooldown. And how it works is it also does AoE. Basically, it'll hit anything in between you and the target, and it'll do 300% damage to everything in between, and 600% to the target itself. It'll also knock all enemies that hit it back, and it is a pretty big knockback. So because of that, you don't really want to use it in PvE. The other reason you don't want to use it in PvE is if you have to move, it'll interrupt the cast time. It's pretty much the only ability you have, I think, where it has a cast time that there's no way to actually make it so that you can cast while moving. So unfortunately, because of the cast time, that makes it so that you could be interrupted. Also, it makes it so that players can also get and line of sight it, which will negate it. But still, it's a pretty good PvP move. So a lot of PvP hunters like to take this for like arena and stuff like that. Knockbacks definitely, and when it knocks back pretty far. So pretty much, let me show you. So here's my little warrior right here. I go and cast, and boo! Look how far. It pretty much acts almost like a disengage at that point. Like, I mean, he went pretty far, so that could be useful in certain battlegrounds as well. You can knock people like directly off cliffs and stuff, so that can be good. Just be aware that when you cast it, you won't be able to move while casting, or you'll interrupt it. And it does have a cast timer. Plus, it's got a 45-second cooldown as well. So But it does do a lot of damage, so it's decent enough to like as a opener or something. So this final talent is basically called Barrage. Does 30 focus, 30-second cooldown, and this is pretty much the ability you want to use for if it's a high AoE fight. So if there's a lot of targets AoE, you're actually going to want to have Barrage, because this is going to be a lot more damage than you'll get out of Glaive Toss in PvE purposes. Really, there should never be a reason you really need it in PvP, so you probably won't ever take it in PvP, but for PvE purposes, Glaive Toss is more for single target fights and limited AoE, and Barrage is for high AoE fights. So, like, I guess Horadon would probably be a good example of where you'd want to use this. Maybe if you're doing the bats on Tortoise as well, stuff like that. But pretty much how it works is you pick a target or whatever, and then your main target takes about 640% weapon damage. All the other targets will take 320%, and it just kind of like sprays everyone in a AoE cone in front of you. It says unusable while moving, but that's actually not true, and I'll kind of demonstrate here. So you can see I'm moving and I'm shooting all these targets while I'm moving. The thing you do want to be aware of though is once you cast it, it does cast for it's basically a channeled cast, so you want to make sure that you use any other abilities before you use this, so that you can make sure you're not doing this and then you need to press something else, otherwise you'll interrupt the channel. So just be aware that this is pretty much our one ability that is actually a channeled ability, and if you try to interrupt it mid-cast, then it won't go its full duration and you'll kind of lose out on DPS in that regard. So try to time all of your cooldowns and various other abilities so that you'll do this probably last, so that you're not getting the channel interrupted. But yeah, other than that, it's pretty much a very good ability, so definitely want to use that on AoE type fights. So I guess to kind of quickly recap, make sure you have Tome of Mind so that you can actually like switch talents on the go in between each fight. That'll actually be very important, as most boss fights you'll actually be wanting to switch both talents and specs depending on the boss fight, whether it's an AoE fight or utility based or whatever. Personally, for PvE purposes, in most cases I like to go and do Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, or Hidden Chimera rather, Silencing Shot, Aspect of the Iron Hawk, Dire Beast, Blink Strike, and Glaive Toss if I'm BM. If I'm not BM, I'll replace Blink Strike with a Murder of Crows. If it's a high AoE fight, I'll probably end up actually having Fervor on instead of Dire Beast. If I'm soloing, I do Spirit Bond instead of Aspect of the Iron Hawk. And if it's high AoE, I'll use Barrage instead of Glaive Toss. And I might use, I'll probably use Fervor as well instead of Dire Beast, just so I can get more AoE in. But that's pretty much it as far as glyphs go. So a lot of, or not glyphs, but as far as talents go, some of it's pretty much like PvP based, whether just personal preference, whether you want to do Intimidation, Wyvern Sting, or Silencing Shot, Post Haste, Narrow, all that kind of stuff. But PvE, it's kind of cookie cutter depending on the boss. So, but it's not too big a deal if you want to go and you have your own personal preference, as long as you're able to do high DPS and play well. That's the most important part. So, hope you found this guide helpful, and thanks for watching.